Hello, everyone, again. This is Sita Shah. I'm the Senior Affordable Housing Finance Specialist at FSD Kenya. I'm really pleased to welcome all of you to this workshop that we've created. The role today is just to introduce Sebastian Dietzold from Tanzania, who I met a few years ago at one of the EAPI housing forums. And we've really stayed in touch, understanding his journey, both in affordable housing and in the introduction of cross-laminated timber and building with timber generally. And the group of invitees today is a select group, people I know who are working very hard in the green building space, particularly for housing. People from government, from the Alternative Building Materials Department, from National Construction Authority, etc. A few investors, few engineers, but it's a selected group and we are recording it so we can share it with others. The format is very simple. Sebastian has a presentation that we've customized to the audience. It's really talking through the journey of CPS, his company. With one particular development, the flagship development, Fumba Town in Zanzibar. And that will last around 40 minutes at the most, I think. We'll open it up for questions. I'll moderate the questions if I need help. One of my friends can help me. But it's a very friendly group. And we really just want to see what are the learnings we can get from Tanzania, what are the synergies with Tanzania's forestry and CLT markets. And then after we finish the main agenda, which is CLT, I've requested Sebastian to speak a little bit about his work in Dodoma and Dar es Salaam, where he's looking at student housing and more dense urban apartments. And we'll go into that in the second half of the workshop. So can I request everyone to simply put their name, their position, their email in the chat so that we can just hand it over to Sebastian to start the presentation. And when we have questions, you can introduce yourself again. I think that will be the most efficient way to use our time. Thank you again for joining, and Sebastian, over to you.
Thank you, Sita. Hello, everybody. Greetings from Dar es Salaam today, not from Zanzibar. My name is Sebastian. I am the CEO of CPS. We are a private developer in Tanzania. And we currently have two flagship projects, two in Zanzibar, and we're currently starting another one here in Dar es Salaam. I would like to a little bit share with you our vision and mission and why we are doing things the way we are doing them. Why are we looking into alternative construction technologies with timber and CLT and other engineered wood products? What are the challenges we're facing and how can we turn those into opportunities for all of us? Because I believe we are living here in East Africa and Tanzania, surely also in Kenya, in a very interesting environment with huge potential for the housing market. I've been at many or other housing events. There was a met Sita in Nairobi, discussing with experts around the world about affordable housing. And we all see that the market is developing extremely slowly. We don't see huge movement in that sector. And I believe, or we believe, that partially is also due to the missing technology. So what I would like to discuss with you, and I maybe go shortly through the first part of the presentation, where it's a little bit about what we're doing, why are we doing these things, how are we doing things in our developments, and what are we working on. And then I think after that, I'm totally open to any kind of questions. Feel welcome to note them down. And then I can a little bit share you our approach of how we want to challenge and go into much larger and other developments here in Tanzania mainland. So a little bit about the presentation today is investment opportunities with impact. So CPS, we are obsessed with impact. We really want to impact the housing market, equitable housing market. and the housing market in general, because we don't believe that equitable housing projects should only be what we formally describe as affordable housing. Low-cost housing should always be an inclusive development of high-end, middle, and we call it entry market. And you see that here on that picture. This is a picture of Fumba Town, seafront, high-end, very low density, rather low density, very few units, typically high-end 10%. Then we have in between townhouses. Half of those are built with timber. It's our middle market, middle density, and then we have a higher density from where the picture is taken. These are multi-story apartment buildings, mostly. We call it entry-level market, where we're today starting at the price level of around $11,000. So, CPS, our mission is to create homes and communities that are strong, safe, sustainable, and accessible to all. Our inspirational and successful real estate projects are adding value for people so we can build an environment worth living. This is really what we want to achieve. We want to create environments and communities that will empower people, right? And that are strong, that will create wealth, even for those who start at a very low entry point, that are durable and strong and safe for families to grow. It is really that what drives us a lot, impacting that market, and we believe strongly, this is maybe also that word here, communities. We believe that large-scale successful real estate projects have to be based on developing community. Just building houses is not enough. Our vision is to transforming lives and empower communities to grow sustainably through development of inclusive projects that have a social impact. So, like Fumba Town was built in Zanzibar within a community of 2 villages, Nyamansi and Demani, and from the beginning we have been working extremely closely with the environment, with those villages, and our biggest joy will be when we see people from that community accepting the project also as an environment where they feel they're welcome and they can actually live and they feel home, right? We want to solve real challenges, enabling people to live their best lives in Tanzania and beyond, so potentially also in Kenya, but I know there's very many good developers already in Kenya. So I think it is more that we share our experience and share our concepts and maybe also technology of how to tackle that market, because I believe that in Tanzania and surely in Kenya, we need many more very good developers. And that's why we're very open and very excited to share our experience and with you, and of course also learn from you, and today show you a little bit what we've been doing. So this is CPS. We currently have 3 offices for our headquarters in Fumba Town in Zanzibar. Then we have an office in Dar es Salaam, and we just recently opened an office in Nairobi, Kenya being one of our strongest markets. That's why you can find us now at the Sarit Center since end of last year. We have an office there where we are being close to our Kenyan clients and servicing our Kenyan clients who are very interested in investing, especially in Zanzibar, but also in Tanzania. The real estate market is
sorry to interrupt, but I don't see any slides up. Have you started sharing?
Yes.
I just see you talking.
Don't see my slides?
No.
I thought I had started sharing.
Yeah, same here. I also don't see slides.
Nobody sees slides?
No, I don't see slides.
No.
Now we do.
Now we can see.
I'm sorry. I thought I had shared my slides with you. 1 second. 1 second. Let me hit this button again. You can see the slides now, right? Sorry. I'll share this presentation, or maybe Sita, you can share this presentation. I was just going through our mission and vision so far. Maybe you could listen and catch a few. Let me now come to the most important. Why do we do what we do, right? We want to turn challenges into opportunities. And I brought with me today 2 quotes from World Politic Review, recently written by a very renowned French journalist who is very deep in urbanization and the challenges of urbanization globally. And the first quote is, "The extraordinary demographic change currently sweeping Africa is one of the most important challenges facing humankind over the remainder of the century. United Nations projections predict that from its present population of nearly 1.4 billion people, the continent's population will approach 4.5 billion people by 2100, which is the staggering equivalent of in population terms of China, of 2 Chinas and 1 India. So I think these are numbers that we can't really capture, these huge numbers. And this is, of course, a huge challenge to provide housing for so many people, right? But it is also a huge opportunity. And so what I will talk to you today about is how can we actually scale our developments in a way that we have a chance to tackle this market that is coming, right? 3 billion people, 3.1 billion additional people is massive. And I think I know the growth numbers in Nairobi are big, and so are they in Dar es Salaam. The second quote is, urbanization is now occurring faster and on a larger scale in Africa than anywhere else in human history. According to one median projection for the end of the century, Africa will have the 3 largest cities in the world: Lagos, Nigeria, Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo. By 2100, each will have more than 60 million people. Dar es Salaam, they're predicting to have 76 million people, and I'm sure that Nairobi is also going to be quite large. So how do we do this? How do we cope as developers with this growth in number of people? Because at the moment, I don't know the exact numbers for Kenya, but I'll show you later the numbers for Tanzania. We are far beyond from anywhere close to what we actually have to deliver to satisfy this demand. Just here, one number, maybe it's a bit small, but in 2018, it was predicted that Dar es Salaam will have 6.2 million people in 2025. Well, our current MANISPA is estimating that we are today in 2022 already above 10 million people. So even the estimates from 2018 don't work anymore, right? We are growing much faster. And to cope with this, I believe strongly we need technology, right? And this is what I'm going to talk to you about. Sita asked me to share a little bit our ideas about CLT and why are we using this technology and what can it do for us. So turning challenges into opportunity, just a few more numbers. 2018, we had in Tanzania an urban population of around 20 million people. It's going to be very interesting. In August this year, we have a new census in Tanzania, and so it's going to be redone. So we are very much looking forward to these numbers, which I believe will be quite shocking in terms of volume and size. In 2030, we expected 35 million people in urban centers, of which Dar es Salaam, of course, is the biggest. So that's 15 million additional people in just 12 years, right? So, and in 2050, we're going from 35 to 76. This is huge. So in Dar es Salaam alone, in Tanzania, so Dar es Salaam needs around 70,000 homes a year. Now in Tanzania, we need around 200,000 additional homes per year. And to just cope with the old estimates, we're going to have to grow to 350,000 units per year. And that is with an average of 6 people per household. So this is really shocking. And I had a conference here with government officials because CPS is part of the technical advisory team of the Tanzanian government in terms of housing policies. And that lady stood up in that event and she said, guys, if we don't really start doing something now, you're going to be in a huge mess very soon. And she was really, she was emotionally extremely serious. And I feel that we are often still discussing, about small solutions, small, nice, developments. And in national housing in Tanzania is doing developments of 150 units, and they're talking about it big style. It is not, there's no point, right? I don't think there's a point. Of course, we have to start small, and we are also very small still, but we believe that we have to look into opportunities of scaling and growing in the number of units we're delivering without compromising the quality, without compromising durability, without compromising sustainability of the product. And of course, it has to be accessible. So requirements to seize this opportunity are that we have to be affordable, and so I have to mention the word affordable here. I know that word has been moved and used too much, and we have to be fast. Affordable is really here meaning ability to build fast and sell below 25 million TC shillings. That's around 1.3 million Kenya shillings. In Tanzania, we know that if the market above 25 million, if I sell products that are more expensive than 25 million Tanzanian shillings or 1.3 million Kenya shillings, we are losing 85% of the market. So 85% of the market that is needed, that is in need of housing, can only afford units that are below 1.3 million Kenya shillings. So it's not only enough to build many units, but they have to be affordable. And we have to build them fast, because the period of waiting for your unit is challenging, because that costs money. While I invested into a new unit and I still have to pay rent at another place for a long period of time, or already took a mortgage and still have to pay rent in another place, that's a double burden. So we have to be extremely fast. And we're working here, for instance, with Tanzanian mortgage financing company very closely in the Bank of Tanzania in models to offer rent and to rent over building, lease and buy, right? So they can lease the property over 10, 15 years, and after paying rent for that period, people own the unit. We believe that is the model that will work. We're testing that at the moment in Zanzibar at our project, and believe this works very, very fine. But of course, there's other ideas of very, very affordable or low-cost mortgages, or qualifying for mortgage after the people have been paying for 3 years into a rental, in a rental scheme regularly, and then they qualify for mortgage systems. So there's different ideas around that, but I don't want to concentrate too much today on the financing side, which could be another workshop we can do. But then we need maybe people from TMRC and Bank of Tanzania and other big commercial banks here. But today I want to look at the side of how do we build affordable and fast. So here you see already a building in this picture from one of our projects in Zanzibar. That's a 3-story building with 22 apartments, built with timber frame walls and CLT slabs. That building was put up from our local team that have been trained in that for a couple of, they're with us for quite a while already. But this was their first multi-story building, and they put this building up in 10 days. And then the team tells me soon they can do that in 5 days. So 22 apartments, 10 days, and then of course you have to fit out still. You need another 1 or 2 months, and the building is done. Great advantage, of course, of CLT as a slab. No curing, no formwork needed, and it's a very nice and clean construction site. And of course, CLT and timber stores carbon dioxide, so we are decarbonizing. So what is required now to do this? All right, what is required to build affordable and fast? Yes, we know we need, the market is there. We've tested the product. I'll talk a little bit later about that in Zanzibar now, and we've been selling units extremely fast at that price level. So we really see that it is how it works. If the price level works, then the demand is very, very large. So the market demand we have, and I believe that's the same in Kenya. So that's not the question. That's not the issue that we don't have demand for the right supply, right? I'm talking about the correct supply. We have in Tanzania forestry. So Tanzania has forest coverage of around 42%. And we have already large sustainable managed forests in the southern highlands from Tanzania Forestry Services and companies like Green Resources or New Forest Company. So we have sufficient and plenty of supply of forest, of pine wood growing fast. Of course, we have to see how we accommodate. Fast-growing pine is different to the pine that European companies use, or the spruce European companies use for CLT produced over there. So we accommodate the technology to that. But we have a lot of forests. I was trying yesterday to find out how much forest coverage Kenya has. I think it's quite significantly lower. Maybe some of you will know that. But of course, Tanzania, Kenya combined, we have absolutely enough forest, right, to supply not only for our market, but even beyond. What we don't have yet, we are still importing, is CLT producers, or we don't even have large glulam producers yet, at least not in Tanzania, I think also not in Kenya. So there's surely a gap in the market of engineered wood products. What we have in Tanzania is MDF producers, and we have plywood producers, that can be a replacement for OSB and other things. And of course, we can get kiln dried treated timber 2x5s in all different sizes from our forests. That is available, but we don't have yet the production capacity for CLT or other high-tech engineered wood products. We have already a company that we set up a couple of years ago, a contractor that is specialized in timber assembly and timber construction, primarily building with timber frame walls so far and CLT as slab. We have just ordered our first full CLT building that comes to Fumba. They're called Vizazi homes. They're completely made out of CLT, including the staircase, 3 stories. Using the full advantages of the CLT of being a very good insulator and not storing heat. Yes, of course, decarbonizing. And I think many of you, Sita told me, know a lot about the characteristics and advantages of CLT. So I don't want to go too much into that. If there's questions about that, we can discuss this in the Q&A round. So we have contractors, and we see it is absolutely possible to teach local craftsmen how to put this together, right? And because especially with CLT, when the CLT boards come from the factory, they're numbered. Either it fits or it doesn't fit. So you don't have the burden of massive quality control on site like for conventional construction. At the moment in Fumba, we have 4 of the biggest Tanzanian contractors at the same time on site, building some of our conventional buildings. And if you know large-scale development, you understand what kind of pain that is to make sure that the quality is consistent and a high standard. And at the same time, it's still using concrete and steel that is emitting a lot of carbon dioxide. So we're moving completely away from that. All our new buildings, like you see that here, I'll show you more later, are completely done with timber frame and CLT, up to 4 stories right now already. And we have banks that are ready to finance. So we have banks very willing to give mortgages in Tanzania. So this is kind of a new circular economy that can be created from the demand that we have to build affordable and fast and sustainable. We have forests, can bring engineered wood product production to Tanzania or to Kenya. We have the possibility of assembling it. We have developers already and many more developers that are potentially the pipeline, because I feel if that circular economy exists, we will enable even smaller and also larger developers to do much, much more, right? And of course, financing opportunities are available. So this new circular economy is really driven by housing developers. And this is something that we are extremely passionate about and we are working on at the moment. We have very good partners in the forestry. We have contractors. The banks are very much on us. And also the government of Tanzania is supporting this strongly. I'll talk about this in a second. So not show again, the developers are the drivers of this new circular economy. So this is our demand, right? So 200,000 units per year in Tanzania, growing. At the moment, I don't know the numbers of Kenya. You know that I'm sure they're much higher than this, but we're only producing 8,000 units, right? 8,000 units, of which more than 7,000 are actually unplanned dwelling. So we're basically not doing anything. Our company has produced around 300 units last year, and we were the biggest developer in Tanzania. This is totally crazy, and excuse me to say that. We are far beyond what we have to achieve. So 272 units we did in 2021. Look, this is a tiny, tiny number. Target, 350,000 units per year we need in Tanzania. Yes? Our target as a company is to produce 10,000 units. This is what we are working towards with our technology and our company and our structures. But that is only 2.8% of the market, right? So we need at least 30 more developers doing the same in Tanzania, producing 10,000 units per year to just comply with what the market needs. So this is, of course, in numbers, this is all very huge. So this is really a challenge, but it's a huge opportunity. And I don't know if you can read that sentence. We believe the housing sector is responsible for building this market, for developing a vast number of houses to drive the demand for the circular economy and fill the massive gap of homes we need to provide for the growing number of people and to grow economy. Because with this demand of housing, equitable housing, that needs to be built fast and in a sustainable and durable way, we can then stimulate forestry, we can stimulate engineered wood product production, we can stimulate contractors putting these units up, We can stimulate the market for developers being now able to produce a lot of units at the same time. So it is really impacting. In Tanzania, we've done calculations with the Gatsby Foundation, who are helping us a lot in research in forestry, that this circular economy in Tanzania alone is around a $20 billion economy per year, right? And totally green. So it just ticks all the boxes, and we are super, super excited. On top of that, Tanzania just issued the engineered sector development framework. So they have done created a framework that was published by our president last July, looking at this market, trying to stimulate that market, also having a clear schedule on issues and requirements that need to be fulfilled to make this market grow. And we're experiencing great support by the government to really push through. Right, here you see another picture from our project on the east coast of Zanzibar. And just a few more small pictures, you know, that in terms of climate change, what is happening, if you study the latest climate change reports, the area in the world that will gain the most increase of rainfall is around the equator, right? And the biggest landmass around the equator is Africa, right? I think the equator goes through Kenya. So we are the areas, Africa, or the equatorial area, tropical Africa, is the area with gaining most rain. So we can grow things, right? There's other areas in the world, like Mediterranean, European areas, also North America, that are areas that the rainfall will drop most. So also this talk speaks for having products made from timber, right? Then we have in Tanzania now quite regular, huge timber investment forums where we're presenting, where the government is there, where Green Resources is there. The CDC group, together with Fund and North Fund, are currently putting together a new fund investing $500 million in sustainable forestry in East Africa. Our Prime Minister is pushing this. So it is really a lot of dots are connecting at the moment that are super exciting, driving this. I've brought a short clip with me just to summarize this a little bit, which I would like to share with you. I hope it will run nicely and you will hear.
The bee originates in the sustainably managed forests of Austria and is carefully crafted and manufactured by Binderhall, who are the globally leading CLT producer.
Sorry, I have to go one step back. They're talking about the project The Bee, which is quite quite secret still. It's one of our new developments. We are planning the highest timber tower in the world to be constructed here in Dar es Salaam, and the timber tower is called The Bee. We haven't officially launched. We are looking currently and we're finalizing this. We have some of the most experienced engineers, structural engineers, fire life safety engineers in the world on this, and it's a super exciting project. And you'll see some first images of this, but this is still a project that is just about going into sales. Schematic design ready, building permits in process, and we're starting hopefully construction end of the year. So when they talk about The Bee in this clip, this is our new project in the highest timber tower in the world, built completely from CLT.
The bee originates in the sustainably managed forests of Austria and is carefully crafted and manufactured by Binderhall, who are the globally leading CLT producer. Engineered wood products are globally seen as the future of construction technology. Some even speak of it as the new timber age of construction. Unlike other construction materials, timber is a renewable material. Forestry has a massive impact in combating global climate change by absorbing and storing carbon dioxide. On the other hand, construction with concrete and steel is responsible for 38% of the world's carbon dioxide emission. Engineered wood products offer an attractive, versatile, and environmentally sustainable alternative for heavy construction. These products can be as strong as steel in certain applications and can exceed the stringent requirement of national and international building codes. Cross-laminated timber is currently disrupting the dominance of concrete and steel in global construction technology. Over the past year, its usage has risen dramatically, and the material is now being used to build beautiful and sustainable homes, offices, schools, and towers. CPS, the developer of Fumba Town, The Soul, and The Bee, has introduced innovative timber construction to Tanzania. In Zanzibar, The first multi-story hybrid timber buildings are in construction. And now residents, as well as tourists, can enjoy beautiful apartments. With the B, we're taking it to the next level. We're not only building the first timber tower in Tanzania, but creating a world-class landmark in Dar es Salaam as the highest timber tower in the world. This exciting technology, with a fast-growing global demand, bears a massive chance for Tanzania to establish a whole new circular economy. From sustainable forestry in the south, such as the Iringa region, to the manufacturing of engineered wood products for the domestic and global market, the B will stimulate this development and growth of the country's economy.
Yes, so this was a little bit my first part of the presentation. Why are we doing what we are doing? I'm happy to go a bit further on and show you already information or something more about the project we're doing in Zanzibar, the Fumba Town development, where we have approximately half of the buildings are with timber, most of them still with just timber frames, some already with CLT. But if you have already questions, I'm happy to answer them here.
I think this would be a good point to have a few questions, Sebastian. I think it was Mokena was first from Dahlberg, and then James Mitchell from BuildX, who I believe Gatsby also working with them in Kenya. I want to just put a caveat a bit, because Sebastian is such a strong presenter that in my experience of really working with most of the stakeholders in this room, there is no magic bullet. And I don't think we need to see CLT magically solving either Tanzania's or Kenya's problems. We really need to think of it as a value chain. There's failures at each level, there are blockages at each level that need to be unlocked, and CLT is one solution that we can promote because of its additional green criteria. But thinking we can magically unlock is, it just goes counter to all the difficulties we've all faced, including Sebastian, and it will really take the hard, long haul of all stakeholders working together to step by step solving each challenge you face. So Sebastian, I hope you'll give a bit more color to how you've got there, the challenges you faced, etc. Mokena, you can start, please.
Thank you so much, Sebastian, for a great presentation, and thank you to all the colleagues who were here on the phone, the devices rather. I was curious, in the video, the company Binderholz came up, which I'm familiar with. They do some really interesting work. I just want to understand what is the relationship between Binderholz and this particular project. And I'm really curious really around the sort of equipment side, the skills transfer, and sort of technologies that are being deployed in this particular, let's call it value chain perspective. So I'm interested in the sort of skills transfer piece.
So no, Binderholz, we are basically, the idea is that, and Sita is absolutely right. Of course, CLT is not the only answer to the solution, right? It's not the only solution for the problems you're facing. To scale, it needs a lot of other things, right? And I have a few more slides. Of course, we need very smooth processes. We need education in the market, especially when it comes to timber construction technology, right? We need ideally the producers here, not in Austria, and a lot of things. So there's a lot of things that have to come together. Tax systems have to come together, and availability of land, and so on and so on. So our relationship to Binder is that we want to really promote the technology in Tanzania, because we want to very soon start building a lot of equitable houses. And somehow, I don't know, it somehow happened by itself that a lot of experts, including engineers and also the managing director or the CEO of Binderholz, we came together, and this project of this tower evolved more and more, right? And then we were so close of being the highest that we said, okay, guys, now we go those 3 more meters and we become the highest timber tower in the world. But that wasn't the original target. The target of this tower is really to promote the technology in Tanzania and beyond, to say, listen, especially to people who we're actually targeting, people who can afford $11,000 to show to them that we're not giving you CLT or timber because this is a cheap product. No, this is high tech. This is breaking the barrier of the perception of timber not being a very modern building material in the market. That is partially still here. People are afraid of fire life safety. People are afraid that termites eat it up. People are afraid that this is not durable, you know, and so it is that the whole tower, around the whole tower, is actually more like an educational, a landmark project to promote timber as a sustainable building material, also here in Africa, right? So Binderholz is basically, of course, we're buying the CLT from them. They're not giving it for free. I wish they would, but so they have done a great effort with our structural advanced engineering team from Knippers and Helbig in New York and in Stuttgart, and there's a company called Ignis from the ETH in Zurich who are helping us on fire life safety aspects. And so there's a lot of experts, and of course the engineering team that Binderholz has is fantastic, right? And the family, Binder family, believes this could be, they're very busy expanding in the US and everywhere else, but they look at Africa, right, as a potential market. So, but primarily why we are working with Binderholz is they are very knowledgeable, and it's a knowledge transfer, right? That they're on our side, and I'm very happy to work with them. They're not the most affordable producer of CLT, right? They're a little bit the Mercedes-Benz under producers, but they're also the most, I think, one of the most experienced. There's others, and it's a great family and a great team of engineers there.
Very good to hear. We're actually working with Knippers Helbig also on the tower that's behind me. I've actually taught with them in New York. We ran a studio for CLT and housing. They're great engineers. Yeah. So cool.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cool. So we have the same team. Nice tower.
We have the same team. The same team. We're working on 2 towers together.
Where's that tower going to be?
Gabon. Actually, it's actually behind me here. So they're also part of the team, and so we've been spending a lot of energy trying to understand the value chain implications, the structural implications. Obviously it's a different, you know, part of the world, so there's different humidities and other sorts of technical issues. But Knippers and Helbig are pretty good, you know. But I like the Binderholz connection because of the capacity that it could mean for local industry. So I'll reach out to you. Let me not take up the space. Thank you for answering my question.
They know, of course, that I'm not ever going to import CLT from them, right? That we want to have our own CLT production here. But it's you know, it's a path, right? It's a journey to get this, because it's not that easy, especially the gluing technology, right? All right, James, you also have a question.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Sebastian, and thanks for the great presentation. It's exciting to see all of this going on in the region. Just briefly, BuildX is a design build company in Nairobi, and we've been working with various partners, including Gatsby and some of the others you're working with over the last couple of years to determine feasibility of CLT here, including also plans for a tower in Nairobi. So it sounds like that's the flavor of CLT development here. So it'd be good to connect on that at another time. But I think the thing that I wanted to touch on, you've kind of addressed it already, which is the need to produce CLT ourselves for a prototype development from South Africa, indicate that it's really prohibitively expensive for anything other than the tiniest of the upper end of the market. I just wondered if you've had to subsidize those projects in Tanzania, or whether they're not profitable, or if you're actually have been able to import CLT at this stage and still make the economics of the development work, even though, of course, costs will be improved if it can be made locally.
Yes, and that's a very, very good question, James. I mean, when I started working with CLT, we were at an import price, and we are a little bit relieved here because in Zanzibar, we are supported by the government that we don't pay any VT or import duty. So this really helps already. But when I started with CLT 3-4 years ago, I think we paid around $500 to $600 a cubic meter. I'm now far beyond $1,000 a cubic meter. So the massive increase in timber prices in Europe, of course, has strongly affected the feasibility of the product, and of course is pushing us more and more to develop it here. In Zanzibar, we are using a hybrid technology. So we are using the CLT primarily for the slabs at the moment, and all the walls are timber frame walls. Very simple. Outside cement fiber boards, then pine studs from the Southern Highlands, Tanzania, insulation rock wool in between, and then OSB for the structural, for the load-bearing walls or structurally important walls, and then just gypsum. So it's a very simple build-up. That costs us depending on how the build-up exactly is, something between $40 to $50 a square meter, right, altogether. While the CLT wall now is much more expensive. So with CLT, we're using now also in a hybrid at the moment for the slabs because we want to go up fast. So a rather small CLT, 90 millimeter CLT, little bit of steel, little bit of mortar to also get the thermal mass into the building, right? And to the soundproofing for when you walk across. So it is in that hybrid combination, as I would say, it's roughly 15% markup to standard conventional construction, under the condition that we are fully tax exempt, right? In Dar es Salaam, the tower we are planning as this landmark project, we have a markup of around 25% of cost doing it with CLT. So this is really clearly a project of everybody investing that we want to stimulate and showcase this market. It is also an optimizing issue when we're working closely with the Binderholz engineers. So if you manage, for instance, to reduce the wastage minimal, right? So what we're actually buying now for our most affordable products is a BBS 125. So it's 125 wide, 5 meter long panel, standard coming out. No visual finishing, nothing, just standard panels. And what they do, they kind of pre-cut the corners for the windows and doors and other things. And then our people just come, finish the cutting, push it through, and we use that piece then for bed or table. So we really looked at minimizing wastage when putting these panels together. In this way, we believe we can produce these low-end houses for roughly a markup of around 10%. With CLT in the local market, and our feasibility in Tanzania shows that we should be able to sell for around $450 a cube. That will then dramatically change the picture, right? But at the moment, you have to calculate heavily, you know, the advantage you have by building much faster. Our tower, 1 floor per week, right? So the construction time of 28 floors is going to be much faster. But it doesn't really cover the extra cost at the moment from importing it, right? So if we are to make this construction technology feasible, we need to depend on local pine and local CLT production, absolutely. We have a markup in average 15 to 20% at the moment.
If I can ask a clarifying question there, Sebastian, what do you project your costs will come to once the local production is available? And what's the route to the local production?
The route to the local production is primarily two things. We need the grading and the standardization and formalization in the timber sector. So at the moment, there's no standards for timber in Tanzania. We don't have a grading yet. The Tanzanian Bureau of Standards doesn't have the facilities to grade timber. So we have currently sent quite a big sample to the Technical University of Munich to do some testing over there. And then some other producers are going to produce some CLT with timber. We sent 2 containers over in Germany to test it. But so testing and formalization and the standardization of timber in Tanzania is going to be a key, because I need to know exactly, am I getting a C25 or I'm getting a C20 when I go multi-story, right? Also for my CLT. So that is important. And the other thing, Sita, is of course we need the production then here, right? So once we have the production here and a good supply of formalized and standardized timber, properly kiln, dry, and treated, which is totally possible already because the companies are here. We want to hit a price point below $300 finished, $280 to $300 square meter.
And that includes the building cost, not the land cost, but all the infrastructure cost?
All in. That's all in per square meter.
But there is a land cost subsidy, or am I mistaken there?
Well, the land cost is of course then priced in already, right?
Okay.
But I told
let
you,
me give.
The thing is, I know you're always asking me about a land issue because I think that's a very different thinking of approaches of developers in Kenya when you have very, very high land costs. So the land costs are much lower in Tanzania, number one, and we are developing in areas primarily in areas which are still greenfields. So we wouldn't really spend for our developments, or to make our developments feasible, we can't spend more than $2 to $3 a square meter purchasing the land.
Thank you for that. We've got Dr. Sangori from the State Department.
Thank you, Sita, and thank you, Sebastian, for the wonderful presentation. I think my great interest is in this field, especially as we look at what is appropriate and in which region, which area, and how the applications are taken to the next stages of the practical products which are delivered on the ground to provide the solution that are much needed in the field of how to access affordable housing. And am I audible? Am I audible?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And so based on that, I just wanted to quickly cross-check with Sebastian in terms of what then we will have as things which have made such technologies to lag behind, especially in our region, where some developers or some homeowners then view such products as inferior in terms of other products. So in your engagement in Tanzania, I would really be interested in how the perception of the people are on the ground in terms of the application of the technologies like the CLT in this case. Looking at a situation where if you look at our coastal city, for example, you find most of the times some products which are done in, of course, wooden kind of products get much affected when it comes to the issues of fire outbreaks. And so the area of research in the field of, having, fire resistant products and how this is infused in the CLT, then would help us, have a well-coordinated, information package, which then goes out there in terms of people having confidence in use of such technology. So something around the level of resistance to the products that are coming up. And again, in the issue that has just been brought out when it came to the issue of grading, like in Kenya, we have the Kenya, Bureau of Standards. Of course, we have equivalent in Tanzania, and of course, the East African region. Now, the aspect of the lack of proper, grading standards in the region then tends to have a lot of implication on this. There are issues that you have brought out, which probably the Tanzanian government have picked up, which can be integrated as a common front to finding a solution to the low usage of such technologies in the region. Maybe those two issues can be brought out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sangor. This is actually what you're mentioning is one of the most important things that we've been looking into from the beginning. When we started Fumba Town development, and if you're interested, I can show you a little bit more about the current developments we're doing and also the technology, how we're using it there. When we started in 2015, people taught me, and also our partners in Nairobi taught me, Sebastian, you're never going to sell a timber frame house, because if they knock on the wall in South Hollow, a Tanzanian will not buy it, and also Kenyan not. So we said, let's see, right? And we built two townhouses. We built a timber frame townhouse, and we built a conventional townhouse. We priced them at the same price. One was timber frame, one was conventional. They look from the outside and inside totally identical, right? Because the timber is, of course, encapsulated. We can talk more about that in terms of fire life safety. That's very important. In terms of protection from water, it's very important. In terms of protection from termites, it's very important. Encapsulated timber. We only have very few areas where we have actually visual timber, mostly only in ceilings. So when we had those buildings, a timber frame and a conventional, it is then really about educating town people, because when you walk into a timber frame in a timber building, the air is dry, it doesn't heat up. It heats up as well, but if you cross ventilate, it cools down much quicker, because timber has a huge advantage. It doesn't store heat. You know, we're living in an area where we have a lot of sun, right, exposure on our walls, our ceilings, and so on, and with concrete stores heat. And when we come home in the evening, we have to put a huge effort in cooling our buildings down. But that effort will be very, very small with timber buildings, since timber doesn't store any heat. So people felt that, and the sales team was so well educated at that point that 67% of our clients then chose a timber frame house, which was for everybody kind of a little bit surprise. So it is a lot of perception. It has to look modern. It has to be nice. We have to teach and we have to educate. They're doing a big event next Friday here in the office where we invite clients to teach them more about the CLT tower we're planning here, which we're doing again, Dr. Sangari, to promote this product in the market, to tell Tanzanians and Kenyans and others, listen, this is not a timber like you know it at home from your village. This is engineered wood product. This is technology, right? And this is the technology of the future. CLT is the concrete of the future. And then, of course, then we have a lot of questions coming around what you also mentioned, fire life safety. What happens if it burns, right? I have fantastic presentations to you, and maybe we can meet when I come to Nairobi. I can show you a lot about that. It's fantastic. The company in Zurich we're working with, the university there, they can calculate exactly how long it takes until a timber apartment self-extinguishes itself, right? Because CLT, I give you a small example. If you have a very thick book and you have a barbecue or a fire and you throw the book into the fire, next morning you go, the fire's out, you open the book, the pages are still white, right? It hasn't burned. That's the same with CLT. It crusts on the outside, and we know today exactly it crusts with 0.65 millimeters per minute. So the engineers are calculating exactly how much time do we need to escape and how long can this CLT be on fire until it loses its structural strength. So they're basically calculating our buildings in the way that it will never lose its structural strength. That's very different to concrete and steel, which at 2,200 degrees temperature, steel will lose its structural strength basically immediately, and houses will collapse. So high-rise timber buildings, the chance of them collapsing even under fire is much, much slower. But of course, it needs to be planned and decided in the right way. They're telling us exactly how much of the apartments have to be encapsulated with gypsum boards and other things to prevent them from becoming a combusting material, preventing them from being exposed to fire. How much can we leave visual? So they've done so many tests. It's so advanced, this technology, in terms of fire life safety. But that's exactly what we have to tell people, right? We have to educate. And I think that's a big part of this whole story. And that's why I'm very happy also to join this workshop today. It's all about talking about it and spreading the news and showing people that this technology is very, very safe. It's very green and it has a lot of advantages. And it can drive, Dr. Sangor, it'd be a big driver for a new economy in our markets here in Tanzania and also in Kenya. I hope I answered the question.
Diane, and then we've got Anne.
I still have more slides, Sita, if you want to see more slides.
Yeah, let's take these two questions, maybe a few more, and then you can go into the slides. Diane is also with the State Department, I believe.
Yes. Afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the presentation so far, Sebastian and Sita, for organizing this. I just have a quick question in terms of forest cover. Maybe it will be covered later, I don't know, but you mentioned you were buying the CLT externally, and I was just wondering if you're aware of specifically what they do to ensure the continuity of their forest cover while producing that CLT, just to make sure it's not compromised, the forest cover. And if so, are there any useful considerations that would be able to be done in Tanzania and even in other places, if you're aware of what's being done with that?
Yes, thanks for the question. Of course, we can source timber only from sustainably managed forests, right? This is of course key. So we know in Tanzania, for instance, that on a hectare of sustainably managed forest, we can grow additionally 18 cubic meters of timber per year, right? We know our recovery rate, so we know exactly how much timber 1 acre produces per year. And of course, it has to be harvested then regularly and then has to be replanted. Only then we will use the timber. It's quite interesting. I can give you one example. In Austria, in Vienna, in the capital of Austria, we have currently the 3rd highest timber tower. It's called the Hoho. in the world. And when the developer promoted a building and built it, the news came in Austria and said, guys, you know, how can you build a timber tower and destroy our forests, right? So they went out and did a survey, and they calculated that with, I think, also support of consultants, the whole timber tower, which is around 4,000 cubic meters of timber, will regrow in Austria's forest within 20 minutes. So everything that they've used in terms of building material has been regrowing every 20 minutes. Right, so we know, for instance, that the buildings, the 4-story buildings we're using now in Fumba, regrow only in the forests of our partners' green resources in the southern highlands in Tanzania within 2 days. So within 2 days, has been regrown, right? And one more very important fact about timber in general, right? We always say that we can change the climate and we can save the planet by planting trees, right? It's not enough. So we have to, sustainable forestry is actually much more effective, because trees, like human beings, burn a lot of energy when they're growing, right? But once they're grown up, they don't produce a lot of oxygen anymore, and don't store much more carbon dioxide. It's like a curve like this. So once the tree grows, it stores a lot of carbon dioxide and produces a lot of oxygen. After that, the curve flattens, right? So you need to harvest at that point to maximize the effect of decarbonizing. So if we have very well run managed forests, which have to be the condition, right? And Diana, you know, if we create the demand for sustainable forests or for the timber, we can then also predict or say you have to forest like this and like this in a sustainable and also biodiverse way. Only then we will source our timber from you. So I think it's a huge opportunity for sustainable forestry.
I'm going to share my my lack of knowledge and why I'm growing. So that was a very new statistic for me, or data point, that a tree, could you elaborate a bit more, that once it's at a certain maturity, it will produce less oxygen, but it can still be a carbon sink? Could you just give a bit more on that particular point?
I remember when we were young, Sita, you know, that's quite a few years ago for me at least. When I was young, I could eat and eat and eat, right? And I wouldn't gain weight. So as a young or young man, you can, or young girl, you can eat and you burn a lot of energy and you grow, right? So it's the same with the trees. When they grow, they absorb a lot of carbon dioxide, and then they produce a lot of oxygen. I'm not saying they're not doing that all afterwards anymore, but the curve is much more flat. So it's like going like this, right? It's very steep and then it flat. So ideally we cut them when they're grown and we replant to maximize this effect.
Thank you for that. And I think that's a key area for Kenya to move towards, because right now we have a ban, you know, on logging to protect our forests, but that's a key area. Can we move into frameworks for sustainable forestry? There's Anne who's got her hand up.
One more thing to add here. Tanzania, we have the law that if you cut one tree, you have to plant 10. I'm not saying that it's being done, but that's the law.
Okay, so we have Anne and Elizabeth, and maybe after that we could have a few more slides and then a few more questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sita and Sebastian. I just have a quick clarifying question for Sebastian. So when you are presenting, you had the image on the circular process of production. And you said that, for example, I think for Tanzania, we have forestry, we have contractors, we have developers, and even banks willing to finance. But yet we don't have local production. So I just wanted to understand then, if all the other things that then feed into this are available, why is it not? Why is it so hard to be able to develop local production? And just also to quickly clarify, then does that mean you source your timber locally, you export it for processing, and then it comes back? Or then does the timber that come in mean that it's been sourced and processed abroad and therefore it's imported fully? And then the second question is about what does it take to create demand and supply? And I know it's much like, does demand come first and then you supply into the market? Or then does supply come first and then you sensitize people towards, okay, there's CLT in the market, then you can demand it. So that would be very interesting to know. Thank you.
Thank you. So CLT, why is the CLT not being produced yet? It is because it is generally it's quite a new technology globally, right? It's in Europe it's being used now since maybe 10 years, and the numbers are growing because we have to decarbonize our economies, right? 38% is carbon emission roughly, which is coming from construction sector and connected industries. So that's huge, and to achieve the climate change targets of temperature increase of maximum 2%, companies and economies are forced to change things, and that's also why they're pushing hard into alternative building technologies, and that's why also CLT was being promoted a lot, and a lot of demand the demand for CLT has been growing. But of course, at the same time, it's a wonderful and beautiful material. I think anybody who's been in a CLT house ever doesn't want to have to live in a concrete house ever again. So it is just amazing. But it's quite a new technology, and at the moment also, we are the only one in Tanzania building with this technology. There's no others. That's why maybe we don't have the demand for the CLT as locally. And also we had to see that does the market accept the product? Can we produce, can we produce houses at a price range, at a feasible price range with this technology already now, while we're importing this material still, because we don't have the production here. Right, and then it's always this chicken and egg problem, right? We have the demand for the CLT right here, but we don't have the producer and we don't have the supply yet. Why this works for us quite well? Because we are both sides of the coin, right? We, on the one hand, as a developer, we are using this technology. Basically, we're demanding the CLT, and at the moment we're still importing it from Europe. But we want to invest together with others into the supply side of the CLT. So basically, we have the demand and the supply a little bit under control, not control, but we are initiating it, right? So of course, the supply will be much, much larger than what CPS will demand in CLT. But we're initiating it, and we can at least guarantee the factory or the industrial development of CLT production in Tanzania, the initial demand it needs to make a setup of an industry feasible. So this synergy between developers and industry, I think, is very, very crucial. Also, the synergy between developers and the forest industry is very, very important, I feel, to make this circular economy happen. And at the moment, we are buying it completely in Europe. The timber comes from Europe and the CLT comes from Europe. We have been exporting timber to Europe, but only for testing purposes. But in the future, of course, the idea is to source the timber here in Tanzania, and with that timber produce the engineered wood products here in Tanzania and use them then for housing and for other things, and maybe even for export.
Elizabeth, please.
What's your experience with advocacy? Because it seems Tanzania is a bit ahead with policy on the basis of sustainable managed forests so that you're able to use the CLT.
I'm not sure, Elizabeth, if we are really ahead. In terms of policy, what is quite new, but like from July last year, is the framework for the development of engineered wood products, right? Which is based on.
Sorry, were you involved in that, and how long did it take to actually get the framework out endorsed by the president?
I was not involved. It was people from the government and from the forestry sector which were involved. And I think it took them quite a while. I can't tell you exactly, Elizabeth, how long it exactly took, but it was not a short process. And of course, we had also a change in government last year and have a much more aggressive government when it comes to developing the economy and also the private sector. Before that was a bit not as much promoted. So we are in a very good environment at the moment, promoting the sector, and Tanzania attracting investments and seeing the potential of its own resources in a new way. And so I think it has been a process over a period of time. We are a bit lucky. We are now promoting already since 3-4 years together with the industry, and lobbying with the government for this technology and for forestry. But they have been here already. We were maybe a bit lucky that I think it was already in the 90s, late 90s, that Norway and Finland invested heavily and bought large forests that were set up originally by the government, and started to manage them. But we also have government institutions like Tanzanian Forest Services who are owning big pieces of forest in Tanzania and are managing them as well. So, and then new players coming like New Forest Company, I think they're also in Kenya, but they're primarily in eucalyptus and pole production. So I think it hasn't been a short or easy process, but we are happy that it's where it is now, and now we're pushing on. We for instance, for the tower, we also had meetings with the National Construction, NCC, National Construction Services Council in Tanzania, who are responsible for promoting new building technologies. So we had a lot of events with them and workshops with our engineers in Zurich and Munich, explaining the technology and showing that, and now they're giving out a recommendation for Tanzania to implement this technology. So this is, you know, different partners working parallel on pushing different areas of the sector with the government, but having a very open and willing government to look into this and to implement this technology. Maybe it's just the right period of time right now to do this. Of course, and our president was in Glasgow and also committed to the climate change targets. So we need to do that. You know, if we're talking about urbanization in Africa, it's a huge challenge, not only in terms of building enough houses, but if we don't use the right technology, a lot of people are moving from a rather green housing at the moment, yes, to then concrete housing. That will destroy our climate balance totally in Africa. Yes, if we replace, if we start doing all the urbanization with concrete and steel, right? And one more thing that pushed us to this technology, Elizabeth, maybe as last point here, is that, you know, our initial developments, which I maybe show a little bit more about, was in Zanzibar, and we basically ran out of building sand. So this is another global issue that, you know, globally the availability of construction sand is reducing heavily, and countries are sitting on it like gold. And it is extremely difficult then to replace that. I've heard about ideas, but the real large-scale ideas I haven't seen to replace buildings. And so concrete is going to be a challenge in terms of resources, but also in terms of course, carbon emission.
Thank you for that. I think there's a lot of learning that we want to take away from Tanzania to the rest of the African countries as well that have already committed to the same targets at COP26, but not much is moving on the built environment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So at this stage, we have about 45 minutes left. I could request Sebastian to present a few more slides, so maybe another 20 minutes, and then we can open it up to more questions. Just to also request Sebastian, where appropriate, if it comes up in his slides or discussion, I've learned a lot about his thinking on estate management and how he set up, you know, the right structures for estate management in Fumba Town. You could talk a bit about that, and also any more learnings on your partnerships with government for Dodoma, student housing, etc. So hand it back over to you, Sebastian.
Thank you. So, all right. I wanted to show you quickly our project in Fumba in Zanzibar, which is designed as a supporting town for Zanzibar town. So this is really a result from the last census that Tanzania did in 2012, when the government in Zanzibar also realized that, you know, Zanzibar town as the capital of Zanzibar is growing from 600,000 people to 1.2 million people in the next 15 years. I believe we exceeded that. We'll see in September when we get the results of the new census. So the government says, Sebastian, or private sector, we need developments, right? And we need housing. And so they had a land bank available, very nicely kept. So we could access land. We got 600,000 square meter plot, and we started building a town, right? So it is, the idea of the town is different to an estate. So we built also not only the houses or residential units, but we are looking into promoting or bringing in schools, medical services, retail, of course, the whole services around the town, that town property management, we call it. So basically running it like a municipal would do. And for that, I promised Sita to talk about a little bit about that, is where we are collecting a service fee, which is kind of, a service fee is connected to the square meter of living space you have in town, which the owner of the building is due to pay to the town, to the condominium board, basically to the owners association. And the owners association is collecting that on behalf of all the owners, and then assigning property management, town management to manage the town in terms of waste management, pruning, street cleaning, security, insurance, all the things that need to be done. So this is the service that we've set up, and the system seems to be working. People are ready to pay that under very strict conditions, right? And that was often a discussion in our purchase and sales agreement. When people bought into Fumba Town, they had to learn that if they don't pay the service fee after a certain period of time where they're not reacting, after a long period of time of warning and so on, we can actually take the property back. Because this is like a tax you're not paying in the end. So if you don't pay your service fee, and what we told investors is, okay, this is very, very strict. If I don't pay my service fee, and then you take my house back, I say, because if many people do that and you don't pay and many people don't pay their service fee, the investment of everybody breaks, because we can't maintain the town anymore. So everybody loses its value. So this is a commitment that everybody has to sign up for. We're very strict, but of course, it's now also our responsibility to manage the town in a very nice way. And for that, I have brought you a short clip to show you how we do that. Has it moved? Can you see something? No, I can see you see something. Okay.
Hi, my name is Frank, and welcome to Fumba Town. Something is wrong here. Nah, this must be it. So here, it's where it all started a few years ago, with nothing but a dream of a whole town, an inclusive town, and a safe town, a place where all kinds of people can come and live together in a beautiful environment. Ha! This is more like it. And now, a few years later, this dream has become a reality. And yes, it's quite real. Come on, let me show you around. In Fumba, we have all kinds of units, from studio apartments to luxurious villas. Our clients from 50 different countries have invested here and have actually started to occupy the town, fitting it with life. Exciting. Hello, how do you do? They just moved in here. I'm a newbie. So Sherman is our town manager. Her team ensures that all the public areas and infrastructures are well functioning and maintained. They also offer rental and property management services to our clients. Can you believe that this park is only 3 years old? This is the work of a fantastic permaculture team who turn our waste into the most fertile soil. If you want to know more about permaculture and how it's integrated within the town, you need to have a chat with Franco, but bring some time with you. And it's not just pretty. Here we grow organic fruits and vegetables for our residents. Let's taste and see. Delicious. So this is the best part of my day. At Kweru Kwenu, we normally like to hang out and relax after a very long day. By the way, would you like to catch the sunset? Yo, I gotta bounce. Isn't this stunning? Yes, this is Fumba Town, where dreams become reality. A reality that belongs to you.
So that is Fumba Town. A supporting town. Originally was designed for only 450 units. And then looking at the demand, we're now growing to the current program is designed for around 5,000 units. So the town will be catering for around 20,000 people to live. We have schools now, we have medical clinics, we have fully functioning infrastructure with sewer treatment, underground electrical reticulation, underground optic fiber reticulation. A gas company will bring in now gas reticulation, town gas reticulation into town. And of course, we have the management that Sita was asking about. We saw our town manager in the clip. She's there and she's looking at it with her team to make sure all the services of the town are functioning and people can live a safe and comfortable life in town. Doesn't matter if they can afford a seafront villa like you see here, or if they can afford a studio apartment, which are a little bit further in the back and away from the sea. So we have currently around 1,000 units under construction. A lot of them are completed. Many are still under construction. These figures are actually a bit old now. We have clients in close to 50 countries of the world who have invested in Fumba. A lot of Tanzanian diaspora is very, very, very eager to invest. A lot of Kenyans have invested because for them, of course, Zanzibar is a very attractive investment. We have handed over a lot of units, so people are living in town. There is real life already in town, which is fantastic, great, but also a huge challenge because we are, of course, also still under construction. So this is what we're doing. We have apartments from $25,000, and then we have townhouses, we have villas, we have the old townhouses, which are actually sold out. They're reselling now. We have Vizazi homes. This is what I mentioned before, our first full CLT structured homes, starting at $70,000. And we have the new JJ apartments. And that's something that I would like to share with you a bit more and look into a bit more, because this is really a product that we have designed for the equitable market. So to do equitable housing, we call it entry level also, with timber frame and CLT as construction material that can be set up in large numbers, also here in Dar es Salaam and in other areas, very quickly and very easily. So here prices are starting at $11,000, and basically when we launched this, we had 50% of the first contract sold within 1 week, which was extremely fast. This is a very short clip, just giving you an idea what it is. So it is, again, the idea is how can we create community with what we build, so the estate thinking is pushed far away. Our buildings, our communities have to talk and have to integrate to the public spaces, public around, but creating private residence, safe residence spaces in the background, in the courtyards here. So here, these buildings are designed that the front or the ground floor can completely be utilized as shops. I don't know if that's in Kenya the same as it is in Tanzania, but in Tanzania, everybody has a side business somehow. So everybody somehow is in need of a shop, right? And then ideally you have the shop where you can live, right? Or you have people who do music, others who are selling colors, others are doing a saloon, and so on and so on. So people have businesses to support the income of the family, which I think is great because it gives more resilience. So these buildings are designed so that the public areas, we have public access with shops on the ground floor, but all apartments are accessed from behind, from the rear of the building, through a secured courtyard, which I will shortly show you in this clip. I hope many of you speak Swahili, because this is in Swahili.
Hebu tafakari kuamka katika jumuiya ambayo hofu zako zote huyeyuka. Unaamka asubuhi ukiwa na ujasiri unaoletwa na kujua kwamba watoto wako wako salama nyakati zote. Tafakari jumuiya ambayo kila kitu unachohitaji kiko karibu kabisa na ulipo. Elimu ya juu kwa ajili yetu, huku matibabu ya kisasa yakipatikana mwendo mfupi tu. Hata duka lako lipo mwisho wa mtaa tu. Na ukimaliza ngazi kutoka ulipo, unakutana na mgahawa wako pendwa. Tafakari kuishi katika jumuiya ya kisasa, ukiishi kwa tunu zote zilizo karibu na moyo wako. Haya ni maisha ya Cheichei ndani ya Fumba Town Nyamanzi.
So these buildings were originally designed as, we call it a micro-urban island, buildings that we can basically put anywhere in different constellations and different configurations to cater for the exact market where we want to build those buildings. So they're all designed on 4 stories at the moment. That has primarily something to do with fire life safety, not so much a structural issue. They are built on a concrete core where the staircase is, and around it, it is very simple, timber frame walls, CLT slab also, or timber nail planks as a ceiling, and going up to 4 stories. The big advantage of the construction technology is that we can also combine different buildings together, and with that save in terms of number of staircases. And the structural material made out of timber frame, glulam, and CLT allows us to have inside basically absolute flexibility in how we set up and structure those apartment types. So we have, these buildings have 64 different configurations, from a lot of small studios to 1 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms to shared living, student accommodation, what Sita mentioned, where we have opportunities. You saw one of the pictures, the last pictures in the clip was a shared unit where you have shared units with 5 bedrooms, shared units with 7 bedrooms, which is perfect for student accommodation. Then they could have on the ground floor, either they have public facilities for students, where they have learning facilities, or where they have recreational facilities in the ground floor. And then we can set up the buildings for whatever need we have. And then we also, what we do is we equip them in different standards, right? So if we go in a market which is more, which is a bit stronger, then of course they equip them with nicer tiles and then with more high quality kitchens. In a very entry level market that is a bit more low tech. So we can configure these buildings, and we're very happy. So in Zanzibar, we've got like a quite well equipped building, and we managed to sell units for around $20,000 to $40,000, $50,000, and they're selling extremely fast, especially, and also the studios and the dukas. And this is something that I have learned, is that when you ask the market, nobody will tell you they want studios. When you build and offer studios, everybody wants studio, because in the end, it is still the most affordable product people are going for, right? And in the end, it is also the product that many people still live in today, right? So these buildings are fantastic. We have been launching them only in I think in October, November we launched them, and now we are going to start building the first 3 buildings. I will share that maybe later this year with you when you see them coming up. But they will be looking something similar to what this is. So compact rooms, smaller rooms, but large windows, nicely equipped, beautiful and fast. So this is really, again, what is the requirement to make this possible? And I've put 3 requirements. So we have to be able to build affordable and fast. The second requirement, and I think that's one that is we are all challenged with, is processes, right? We need smooth and reliable issuing of title deeds, pre-approved projects. We need building permits very fast. You know, when these processes take a lot of time, it is becoming many developers are really challenged to make the project happen, right? And this was one of the conditions we had here, and we discussed with the government in Zanzibar before, and we're currently discussing with the government of Tanzania. In Zanzibar, we're issuing title deeds within 14 days, right? So this is extremely fast and very reliable process. This gives us the opportunity to really, you know, speed up these processes and do things extremely quickly. So this is one second very important requirement. And the third requirement, I think, which is not a challenge for you in Kenya, but was for us in Tanzania and still is in Tanzania, is that we need to allow direct foreign investment. So it is basically, Fumba Town was the first project in Zanzibar where we had as a condition that we have to be able to sublease and give titles to foreigners. That's why also now so many Kenyans invested there. That wasn't possible before. And in Tanzania, we're still lobbying that with the government. We're hoping that that policy will come through this year to allow for foreigners to buy units under the Unit Title Act in Tanzania. So this was another crucial requirement, because we have to open our market to a secondary market, so be able to, you know, attract investments from all over the place to make our large-scale investments and developments possible. Because if you do the math, it's often quite challenging to develop rental portfolios, right? Because you need to see how you structure your financing as a developer. So if we allow for foreign direct investment into the developments, which purchase this as an investment and then create a rental market coming from that, I feel for us that has been the most feasible solution to create a rental market. So more than 50% of the units in Fumba are bought by Tanzanians or sorry, Kenyans or Tanzanians or Kenyans or people living abroad who are renting out their units most of the time. So I think this is one of the ideas. And here again, the B coming to Dar es Salaam, and again, the responsibility I see that we as housing developers and the housing market has is to drive this economy and drive a circular economy that provides us with this opportunity of developing fast and affordable. But again, like Sita said, there is a lot of other challenges around that, but I think we can take them. And I think the market is so big that I hope we can invite a lot more developers to come into the market. And I don't think it is so much the government we need to challenge with providing us with support.
Sebastian, have we lost you, or is it?
Excuse me. Excuse me. I think I was gone for a second because we just had a power cut, so we're still challenged with power in Tanzania. We have the forest, but we don't have enough power. Not yet.
That's
I hope
okay.
you can see me again now.
Yeah, we face the same.
All right. That was the last slide.
So we've really kept time. We have almost half an hour for more questions. So I really open it up to the floor. We don't need to keep the whole half an hour. But if there are questions, that's why we gave enough time. I've heard Sebastian speak at a few places, but never got this level of detail because it's always rushed. So I requested him to give us enough time for people's questions. And perhaps I could start with the question, Sebastian. You'd spoken a little bit about your work in Dodoma, maybe just talking a bit about the structuring of the partnership there.
Yes. Oh, okay, I can do that. I think the lesson that we've learned here in Tanzania as developers that it is always a bit challenging, or it can be a bit challenging if we are developers and the landowners, right? So especially when we work for government. So Fumba Town is a project that we privately own as a company and with investors that we have. But in Dodoma, where Tanzania is building a new capital, we're looking into a different approach, and they have actually started that put that into policies. Basically, the idea is that the government or the municipality of Dodoma puts land they own into an SPV, into a company, right? So the SPV owns the land, which is great because we don't have the land purchase costs, we don't have the transfer costs. So the SPV owns the land. And of course, also what happens, of course, as large-scale developers, we know that there's a huge effect in appreciation of land values when you, especially if a greenfield somewhere, right? And then you develop a big part of that, which becomes quite successful. The rest of the land appreciates a lot, so you can bank on that value. Now, give that banking value to municipal is a great asset for them. So the idea in Dodoma is they have an SPV that gets the land from the municipal into the SPV. Then we were our consultants and supporting that, putting a proper structure up for the SPV. So it's not going to be, politicians are not allowed, no, but people from the government are managing that, but very knowledgeable people are managing the SPV. And we are developing for the SPV the land of the SPV, of the company. The advantage here is that we can purely come in as developers. We don't have the land issue. The government or the municipal is gaining from the land appreciation, which they then can use bank on and build public infrastructure which they urgently need, like hospitals and schools and so on. I can give you an example, for instance, in Fumba Town. Fumba Town, when we started, land value was around $50 cent per square meter, right? So I think that's roughly 50 Kenya shillings a square meter. Now the land value is around $60 per square meter, right? So that's, I think, 6,000 Kenyan shillings. So that is only 5 years later. You see, the appreciation of the land value is massive. And this is what we are banking on. And this is what the government could bank on, a Manispa or the SPV here in this case. And they can bank on that and then get cash to produce public infrastructure and produce services and facilities the town actually needs. In this case, it can be that they are giving grants out, then with that, banking on that, to build student accommodation, which they urgently need. And Dodoma has one of the biggest universities in Tanzania, and of course has a strong growth of population because it has become the capital, or actively become the capital, a few years ago. So there's a lot of people moving into town and then desperate need of accommodation. So it has to go fast again, and this setup makes it very, very safe and very, very comfortable for us as developers to develop for that SPV instead of owning the land and all the challenges combined to that, because then we also need to provide the public infrastructure that has to be transferred again into the government, right? So the public infrastructure on that land then will be owned by the municipality anyway, so there's no transfer of public infrastructure again, right? In Fumba, that's still a challenge, and we haven't really resolved that with the government. We build the roads, we build the water reticulation, we build the sewer reticulation. Who's going to own that one day, right? We are handing this at the moment over to the homeowners association, but these are things that we have to look at. So we are very happy with that approach. We develop basically for an SPV, which is a professionally run company that owns the government land, or here the municipal land of the municipal of Dodoma. So this is a concept that we're using, and this has been researched. There's a research document about that from a professor here in Tanzania. Forgive me, I forgot his name right now. I don't remember it now. But there is a document about this, and who's interested, I can find out how to access this document, maybe also online, where this approach of using SPVs for urban development of towns, of municipals, has been described.
I see my colleague Oma, who heads the Green Finance, has a question. Before he asks his question, Sebastian, what is the difference between this SPV structure and what we typically call PPP structures, like PPP partnership?
I think the difference is that it is a very clear business relationship, very, very transparent business relationship between me as a private developer and the basically private run company, the SPV, right? There is actually no government involvement. And as much as we like our government here, but I would like to rather work with business-oriented companies than with a municipal, right? And all the political decision taking that is taking place there. So, because, you know, of course, governments and municipals have also a political agenda, which often doesn't match our business agenda, right? Or the development agenda. So I think that has been then taken out, right? So the idea is also in that concept paper that SPV is managed and run by professionals from the sector, not by government. Okay, the board of the company will be the municipal, right? But not in daily operations.
Understood.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Sebastian, for a very insightful presentation. And thanks to SITA again for organizing the event. Certainly very illuminating. So I have a question to do with climate change or the environment, which is the language that I speak. And it is to do with to what extent has the development of the seafront unit in particular considered the projected sea level rise? I'm asking this because, as Sebastian rightly said, this region is projected to experience an increase in rainfall. And we know that the bulk of that water will actually find its way into the oceans. In addition, we also know that rising temperatures are causing more and more glaciers to melt, with the melting water again finding its way into the oceans. And the oceans themselves are also thermally expanding, again as a consequence of the rising temperatures. For places like Zanzibar, we know the IPCC projects a rise of about a meter or so, which again could result in some 400-meter landward retreat of the ocean. So I'm wondering whether, particularly for this seafront development, whether that has been considered.
Yes, Omar, thanks for the question. I think that is true an issue. We are very lucky in Fumba that we are on a cliff, right? So we have 5-meter difference to the high tide level of the sea. But I'm not saying that, you know, if the water level rises in Zanzibar, if the water level generally rises by 1.5 meter or more, Zanzibar, and not only Zanzibar, many coastal areas also in Tanzania will have a massive issue. To be very honest with you, Omar, we had a discussion with our architects, and we said to do really long-term sustainable development, we should look at areas that are above 1,000 meters high, right? That would mean in Tanzania we move quite far land inwards. So there is definitely a challenge, and I think in the short term the biggest challenge for Fumba or the Fumba Peninsula and Zanzibar would be the southern tip of the peninsula will be underwater, right? Where we are higher up. Now the highest part of Fumba Town, where you see the apartment buildings are roughly 20 meters above the sea level on high tide. So we are safe for a few more years, but of course that sea level rise will impact everything, tourism and so on and so on. So that will be a huge challenge. The biggest challenge I feel though short term will be when the sea level rises, it will push in. It will have an effect on the freshwater supply, because under Zanzibar or under the peninsula we have a freshwater lens that on the sides is kind of mixing with the seawater. So when the tide comes in, it pushes that land inwards, and when the tide goes out, the lens flattens. So when I go with my dogs on the weekend on a low tide along Fumba, they drink the water in the sea because it's actually the fresh water being pushed out from that sweet water lens. So if the sea level rises, that water would be pushed more land inwards, and I don't know what effect it will have in the groundwater situation of Fumba Town. So it's not only the sea level rising, but also it will have a huge effect on the groundwater and the sweet water we are depending on. If that would, for instance, would mix up more with the higher pressure from the seawater and drinking water would become brackish, this could be one of the first issues we are seeing, rather than areas being flooded. Right, so this is the critical scenario, right? So in Nairobi, you guys can be very happy and safe because you're far up, right? But the world economy will be, of course, heavily affected when the sea level rises by 1 or 2 meters.
Are there any other questions? I mean, I see a lot of familiar faces. So I just want to open it up. We have 15 minutes left. Tom, please. Tom Woodward.
Hi, Sebastian. Thanks for today, and Sita for organising as well. Sebastian, I was just wondering whether you could expand on how you've achieved the 11,000 USD sales price for the Chai Chai apartments. Are they cross-subsidised in some way, or in the context of the conversation we've had throughout the 2 hours, it sounds pretty ambitious and impressive if you have managed to achieve that sales price.
Yes, so first of all, the units are rather small, right? So we always have this the 3 points that we're looking into when we do real estate. It's the quality, it's the size, and the price, right? And we said we compromise in the size. We don't want to compromise in quality, and we can't compromise in the size and the price because people can't afford it. So the units are rather small. We're talking about $11,000 is roughly 15 square meter studio, right? And of course, that price, of course, also covers infrastructure and development costs and so on, and land, right? So what we're doing, and that's why I talked about inclusive developments. Inclusive developments, I feel, are the right approach, but also on a financing method for the entry level. Because the high end part of the development can cover a bigger ratio of the infrastructure costs than the low end. So we're cross-financing infrastructure from high to low end. Right.
Sebastian, I think there would be real interest if we could engage with you. We've launched an open access initiative with FSD as a network and CAF, Real and International Housing Solutions. So, we will engage with you to see whether we can get some more granular detail on the pricing, and the costing. What I still can't get my head around, because we always talk, is like $4 per meter for land cost seems so low, and so it'd be good to give you a simple spreadsheet so we can see. I see McKenna's hand is up, and if anybody else, please do take this opportunity. McKenna?
Yes. Sorry, no device challenges. Sebastian, again, thank you so much for your presentation. Could you expand just a little bit more about how your business model intersects with the forest and the sort of supply chain? I think it's the right way to go, looking at vertical integration, from a supply to demand side. But what are the sort of learnings that might be useful from a modeling perspective, and how do you intersect with the actual resource on the ground?
Well, we're primarily an off-taker, right? And an off-taker that partners with our suppliers to make the supply chain more feasible and more resilient, and of course, in that way also look into issues like standardization and of timber products and other things to allow for that. So the biggest challenge for our timber producers here in Tanzania was that they have very irregular offtake, right? They don't have strong offtake and are not on a regular basis. So what we can provide to them is that we can say, listen, we need every month, we need 50, 100 cubic meters of timber, of treated timber, so they can run their supply side or their production side much more efficiently. So it is basically, it's an offtake and supply relationship where we are saying, okay, we need this guaranteed supply from you, then we guarantee you an offtake in return. That's basically what it is. But both parties have an interest of growing their businesses. So the timber side, the timber producers, have a great interest in supporting us on our CLT development and on our housing developments. And on promoting this. That's why we're often promoting this sector together, of course, as we have a very strong interest for the timber suppliers to become strong and feasible and reliable and resilient to any kind of changes. We had a huge issue, for instance, in the summer, in last September with fires, so in the forests. Or in the 2-3 days I was in Southern Highlands, we just around $5 million of timber was destroyed every night. So these are the things that we promote together or lobby together also with the government to have measures in place to protect that. And also often it is basically bush clearing from villages around it that don't profit from timber yet, and hence a lot of education and see how we can make the local communities part of this value chain. I think that is very, very important to make this a very good supply. So it's basically it's kind of a partnership on a friendly level, both with the interest of me being able to source reliable supply of timber, and the timber producers having a secure and feasible offtake.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I guess we can give everyone a few minutes back. Sebastian, do you have any closing remarks? We're really grateful for your sharing, and
thanks for this opportunity. It's great to discuss this, and because it's in our heart, we want to promote this and hopefully work together with a lot of developers around East Africa and Africa to take on the responsibility of producing a lot of units, which I think we have to really start doing soon. So thanks, Sita, for this opportunity of sharing. And if anybody has questions, I'm happy that you share my contacts, right? And then we can connect either when I'm in Kenya, in Nairobi next time, or even if you're interested, of course, Karibu Sana, Zanzibar, Fumba Town, or Dar es Salaam. If you're here, hop in and say hello. Yes, we are very open to exchange any kind of information and knowledge that we have gained and experiences we have made to help or to support the sector and promote the responsibility we have of building a lot of units in a very sustainable and durable and affordable way to supply houses for the strong demand we have.
I think we have a question from Dr. Sangori.
Thank you, Zeta. It may not be a question. I just wanted to cross-check if my counterpart, Architect Oliver, is on the call, the Director, Kenya Building Research Center. I think there's a question which can also be picked up in relation to further research in some of these areas, which then can be coordinated in a way, because what Sebastian has brought out in today's webinar and discussion is quite rich, and some aspects need to be investigated further. And just cross-checking if my colleague is on the call to say something. Thank you.
Architect Oliver, would you like to say anything?
Thank you so much, Sebastian and Sita, and everybody else. I think this is an interesting subject for us, since we look at innovative building materials and technology. It's something we can really look at. So the timber in Kenya probably is not as much as it's there in Tanzania. What our focus is bamboo. We're looking at bamboo as an alternative to timber. So probably that is one area where we could collaborate, so that we see whether our bamboo can also be engineered to behave like what you are using the CLTs. Otherwise, it's very, very enlightening, and we will appreciate. Certainly get in touch. Thank you.
There was a participant who's not with us anymore, Carol Kariuki of Greenpot. I don't know whether you know her, Architect Oliver, for bamboo forestry. Sebastian, do you have any overarching thoughts?
We actually started before we went into timber, and then we started with bamboo. So we used I-beams. We built I-beams with bamboo and OSB. Our challenge was the sufficient supply of bamboo that works, because our research at that point showed that we need alpine bamboo that grows in high altitude and has the density we need for construction. We had challenges treating it, and the insects loved eating it here in Zanzibar. But definitely bamboo has some kind of a future, I'm sure, because it's, of course, even more exciting than timber because it grows much faster. It's a grass and has great characteristics in terms of structural strength. We just haven't come around to being able to use it in a way that we would need to, in terms of quantity and processing it, in terms of quality of the bamboo also. The bamboo we found that would have worked for us, we would have had to import from China, which of course is not the story we would like to support, but we're very open also to understand more what's going on in the bamboo sector, and I'm sure this is something that can work, but you know, when we're looking at scaling the housing supply, we have to look into products that can be built extremely fast and easily also, right? Because there's another story. I don't believe, for instance, that maybe I can end there, that we we can conquer the 200,000 or 300,000 houses we need here in Tanzania, and I don't know how many 100,000s of houses you need in Kenya per year, by developers doing the job, but we have to enable the retail market. So the small developers with the right product. Only then we can get to those numbers. And they need very simple production technology that can be easily assembled, but in the same sustainable way. But I'm sure bamboo has opportunity. Our bamboo story ended after 2 years. We stopped it and we replaced it by fast-growing timber. And even though Kenya has maybe not the timber cover or the forest coverage that Tanzania has, but you know the timber we are using grows here in 16 to 18 years. Maybe there's an opportunity for Kenya to grow a lot of timber in a sustainable way, that in the future you have then enough timber available for construction. In the meantime, Architect Oliver delivered to you from Tanzania, no problem.
When do you think that will be, Sebastian?
Our suppliers can deliver timber tomorrow. We have enough timber.
Okay, but not CLT.
Right? Green resources, check it out, South Hill. CLT not yet, timber we have. CLT, end of next year. I hope our first production site is up.
Great. With that, I'm going to say a big thank you to Sebastian. He's always been a supporter. And to everyone who attended, you know, I'm just so grateful that everyone has made the time. We will make this recording available. Sebastian's also open to more questions. And I just want to reiterate with what I started with, that no innovation will be the magic bullet. It just still needs a lot of hard work, a lot of collaboration to break down the barriers to move from one step to the other, you know, to move from land acquisition to planning to infrastructure. It just needs a lot. And the innovation on its own, no matter what construction technology, no matter what financing, is not going to break down those barriers. And this is where we're really working to bring the stakeholders together so that there's a greater sense of trust to help us push through the urgent agenda. Thank you to everyone. Thank